Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today, we're talking about the top 5 baits for bass fishing in the month of July. I love bass fishing in July. This is the peak of summer bass fishing as far as I'm concerned. Water temperatures are way up. It's hot, which means the bass's metabolisms are up. So they're aggressive, they're feeding. It's not as hot as it's going to get yet. The fish have not become lethargic. They're still aggressive. We can move shallow. We can catch them on a topwater, or we can slow down. We can worm them, or we can back out. We can deep crank and swim bait. We can do all these different things to target fish this month. It's so fun. You sort of get to pick the direction you want to go, shallow or deep, and then you adjust accordingly. And we've got baits for all of that. Now, I said this is a top 5. I rarely stick to 5. We're actually talking about 6 here, 6 categories of baits. But in July, you've got so many options. I just can't narrow it any further down. Now, let's kick it off with topwater. Okay, because again, these fish are aggressive. They're chasing. This is a fun time. Now, what we do with the topwater depends on the type of lake that you're on. So I have 4 baits, but it's 2 categories. You decide what's best for you. We're either talking frogs, if you're on a fishery where you've got a lot of heavy cover, a lot of grass in the water, things that are just going to gum up your treble hooks. But if you're not, if you've got clear, open water, we're talking about a walking bait. So let's start with the walking bait, okay? I narrowed it down to 2 for you. And again, you don't need all of these baits at all. Everything we're talking about today, just pick the ones that connect with your fishing style, and I'll describe sort of where I throw them. If that fits where you're fishing, key in on those baits. You don't need all of them, because again, in July, you can do whatever you want. These are just the key baits we'd throw in the different situations. And we'll link all this stuff in the video description below the video for you. And those links will take you straight to Tackle Warehouse, where you can see, you know, the colors and all of that. And we'll give you our favorite colors as well. So kicking it off with topwater, the walking bait. A walking topwater bait is a great way to call bass up. They've got rattles in them, they're loud. They will pull fish a long way. Whether we're up shallow, throwing this up to the edges of cover, which is a great option, or we're out deep offshore where bass are running bait fish out in the open. That could be ledge fishing in the south. That could be fishing over the top of open water humps in a highland reservoir. You can catch a ton of fish on a walking bait. Now, these 2 baits are very different. This is the Evergreen Shower Blows. This is the Megabass Giant Dog X. It comes down to your fishing style. The Giant Dog X is a subtle walking bait. So if I've got calm conditions, if I've got really clear water, I don't want to overwhelm the fish. If I'm fishing up shallow, the Giant Dog X is an amazing choice. If that wind kicks up and it gets, you know, it starts blowing, we've got waves, and we need to get the fish's attention, that Evergreen Shower Blows is more aggressive. It's more commotion, and it will pull them further. So we have a more natural option, and we've got a more obnoxious, louder option, depending on your conditions. Now, that's that walking bait. That's where I would focus in if you can. But if you can't because of the cover, if your treble hooks are just going to get gummed up, then we switch over to a frog. I'm typically still throwing a bluegill frog this time of year to start. My theory is that we throw bluegill, white, black, and chartreuse. And not in that order, but that's it. Those 4 will cover 100% of the frogging I will ever do. But this time of year, the shallow fish are really still eating a lot of bluegill on most fisheries. So I'm gonna focus in on those bluegill type colors. Now, the specifics of the frog have to do with your lake. If the bite is good, if you're getting a lot of bites, they're not afraid to eat that frog. From Spro, we have the Bronzeye 65. That color is called Killer Gill. And that's the one, if I was going to gamble on one right there. That thing is a fish catcher. Now, if you're on a lake where there's a lot of other people throwing the frog, or it's clearer water and the fish will sort of blow up on it, but you miss a lot of them, that's where this little guy comes in. This is the Jackal Kayara. The Kayara is a much smaller frog. Now, there are a lot of small profiled frogs on the market, but very few of them really function properly. The Kayara has an incredible walk the dog to it, great action, great hookup ratio. It weighs enough you can still cast it and be accurate. That is the best small frog profile I have ever seen. So again, the Bronzeye 65 by Spro is our full size. That Jackal Kayara is our downsized. It just depends on you and your lake. And again, I'll link all of this in the description in the order that we talk about it, and I'll give you my favorite colors for every single one. Let's talk about the other hard baits next. We've got one more category, and that's the crankbait, deep diving crankbaits. We are into the heart of summer now. The fish that are offshore tend to get deeper. They tend to be bunched up by now. We're looking to get those fish to react. Most of the time, I'm throwing full profile crankbaits in July. I'm not throwing finessey crankbaits. I'm not throwing ghosty colors. None of that. I'm throwing big, full-bodied crankbaits, bold colors, either your solid tones or your bright, bold tones. That's how we're getting the bigger bites. So I've got 3 crankbaits here for you. They're all completely different. This is the Azuma Z-Boss 22. That is a bait that I have smashed them on over the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I mean, for a long time, this month of the year, I'm cracking them on that bait. And that's one of my favorite colors right there. I do really well with that specific color. And again, I'll link it in the description. If I'm not throwing that bold, solid color, then I'm throwing some of that chartreuse blue, those really bright, bold cranks. I'm trying to get down, stay down, present them a meal that is large, it's worth eating, and they can clobber that thing. Again, they've already seen crankbaits by now. I'm looking to trigger a feed response. I'm not trying to creep up on them. I'm not trying to finesse them. I'm trying to put a crankbait right in front of them right now in a bold color, and they've got to respond to it. Next up, from Nomad, we've got the D-Track. This bait, again, deep diving bait. This one is loud. That bait is obnoxious. That is the loudest of any deep diving crankbait that I have been able to find. The loudest. That bait, if you've got a school and they start to fire, that's a bait that can just keep them eating. Stock hardware is perfect. You don't need to change anything. Just tie it on and send it. And then the last one from Rapala is the DT20, the deepest diving of the DT series. It is a little smaller profile, still getting super deep, little quieter sound, but a ton of commotion, and they respond really well to it. I often throw this one last at a school of fish. So I throw my biggest bait first, then my loud bait to try and keep them going, then my most, I don't want to call it finessey because this is not a finesse crankbait at all, but of those 3, the most finessey to try and catch a few more out of the school, and then I go to my next spot. That's sort of how I cycle through my baits as I'm making my choices. Next category is going to be a swim bait. Now, we're not talking giant big baits this time of year. 2 baits completely different here. This is the Baka Burrito, the 5-inch burrito. This is a silicone bait. So it's a full-size profile, even though it's a 5-inch bait. This isn't like a little 4.8 Kitech. It's a lot bigger than that. It's a silicone bait. It's in a true swim bait category, so you'll pay for it. That is not a budget bait, but it comes with a phenomenal jig hook in it. I throw this on a 7.7 heavy, 20-pound line. That's what I like to throw it on. I'm looking for big bites when I throw this thing. It sinks very quickly, so I can throw it shallow and wind it like it's a chatterbait. I could throw it up under docks, wind it under the docks if the fish are in the shade, but I can also go out like ledge fishing, fire it out, let it go 25 foot down, and then just slow roll it along the bottom. It has this very unique action. It's almost like a vibration on the back of it, and fish just, some baits have that magical something. They just respond to it. I catch them really well offshore all summer on that bait right there. That is the Tactical Shad color. Sometimes I throw the Tactical Gizzard if I need something a little more solid. One of those two colors is going to get it done for me. That's an amazing bait. And then the other option is an underspin. If they're actively chasing bait fish, if they've got them schooled offshore, schooled down deep, the underspin does an amazing job of drawing fish's attention much further than a plain swim bait will. I've got a 4.75 swammer on the back of this, so a full size, but again, 4.75 and a 5-inch, and this is a lot more bait. You see what I'm talking about? A lot more. It's a true swim bait, even though it's a 5-inch bait. Back to that underspin. This is our Tactical underspin, the full size. So this comes in a 3/8 all the way to a 3/4. And then you've got a variety of hook size options. That's the 2/0 in that one right there. You could easily go up to a 3/0, even a 4/0 with that swim bait, no issue. Just depends on the fish you're targeting. But when I go down to a 2/0 like this, 3/8 ounce, 2/0, I can throw it all the way down to 10-pound line and still set that hook, no problem, with a full size bait, so I can get more bites in clear water. All right, now we're switching over to some of those slower moving, but well, not this one, that's not true. One more faster moving bait. This is one of my, you guys already know, if you've watched any of our summer content so far this year, this is the Wobble head, also called a swing head, a swinging jig. So many different names for this thing. It's a creature bait, specifically the X-Zone Adrenaline Craw. That's my main bait for doing this. And this color, June bug, either June bug or dark June bug. I put it on a Dirty Jigs pivot point football head, and that allows this free range of motion that you see there. What we do with this is not a Texas rig, this is not a jig. This is a reaction bait. We throw it out, let it hit bottom, and then we start winding. Steady retrieve, and it will bounce its way along the bottom, and every time that head comes into contact with something, that body will sort of bump and roll and move, and then those two legs are back there kicking as well. Something about this profile in this color, June bug, I can't hammer that home enough. Throw June bug. If you want to catch a monster, you'll get it on June bug the vast majority of the time in the summer. I catch more fish on my green pumpkin type colors. I get my biggest bites on June bug all summer. But winding a wobble head allows you to cover a ton of water. You can eliminate water quickly, you can find fish quickly, and you can catch the biggest fish in a school on that bait right there very consistently. Of the baits that you can use to target giant fish with consistency, that is by far the most budget-friendly option there is all summer long. All right, next up is going to be a worm. Now, the specifics of that worm have to do with where you fish. My number one bait would be this right here. This is an X-Zone Deception worm, June bug. Again, there's a reason, right? We get our bigger bites on June bug. Now, you can throw other colors. I'll even link other colors in the video description. But if I'm gambling on the big bite, it's always on June bug. I've got this paired up to this smaller head on here. Let me pull it out of there for you. I'll show you. That's a Missile Baits Warlock head. It's a lot smaller than your standard screw lock, but it's got a screw lock in it. So I can screw onto that. And then this downsized shaky head allows me to fish this worm on lighter line. So I can get a lot more bites by dropping down to 8 to 10 pound line, throwing that shaky head worm. Now, if I'm on a fishery that's, you know, less than 6 feet of visibility, all the way down to murky, That's the worm, that's the color where I'm starting. If you're on a highland reservoir, or maybe you're way up north, cleaner water, fish that like to suspend, steeper banks, the Senko remains a major deal. So a worm is the bait of choice, but it's up to you whether you want to take that shaky head, fish it down on the bottom, or you want to take a Senko. If I'm throwing a Senko this time of year, 9 times out of 10, I'm throwing it wacky rigged. That Gamakatsu finesse wide gap, that hook, 1/0 specifically, pairs up so well to a 5-inch Senko. I'll throw this around the edges of laydowns, edges of docks, and that can be a dock on the shore in shallow water. That can be a floating dock out in the middle of a lake. I can throw it on log booms in the middle of a cove, right? Anywhere where fish might suspend, that weightless, wacky rigged Senko is incredibly effective. You can drop it down to really light line, so those clear water fish that are line shy will still take a shot at it. That finesse wide gap, that smaller hook, will set on 5 and 6 pound lines. So we can get bites that we couldn't convince them to eat anything else because they're line shy. They'll still eat that Senko on that slow fall in the open water. And then last but not least, definitely not least, it's going to be a jig. All right, the jig is just an incredibly effective summertime bait, shallow and deep. We can be pitching around cover. We can be fishing shadow lines on docks and laydowns. We could take that same jig out. We can go ledge fish it. We could drag it offshore. We could do everything with it. One jig to do it all. This is a Dirty Jigs 1/2 ounce pitching jig. If I could only have one, that's the one. And if I could only have it in one color, that's the color. It's called the go-to. That single jig, it may not be the perfect jig for every situation, but it can be adapted to any situation. If I need to just throw a bait into a bag to know that I've got an option, it is always a 1/2 ounce pitching jig in the go-to color. That jig, again, pitch cover, I can drag it deep, I can hop it, I can do all the things with a single jig, and then I can adjust my trailers, size and color to adapt to every situation. 2 totally different trailers. X-Zone, the muscleback craw, that's the 4-inch, the big one. That's what I have on this jig right now. But one little trick is I tear about a 1/2 inch off the front of it to make it more of a compact profile. It fits the jig better, but those legs back there will kick. It works really well. When I'm stroking a jig, it'll swim. When I'm flipping around cover, it'll swim down. But sometimes they just want a dead profile, right? They want it to look like a crawdad, but not be giving you a bunch of movement. Fish's moods just change. Sometimes they want one, sometimes they want the other. So if they're not eating that muscleback craw, I'm throwing that Missile-Baits D-Bomb. The D-Bomb is a true craw profile without the big exaggerated movement. So I carry both. I can put either one on the back of my jig. I can adjust, like this color, Super Bug. One side is green pumpkin black, the other side is black and blue. I can turn it green pumpkin side up of a very natural jig. I can turn it black side up. Now I've got a black blue trailer on a green pumpkin brown jig, and I've got a much bolder profile for flipping around in murkier water. One trailer, I can adapt to multiple different situations, and again, just one jig. Again, guys, this is a fantastic time to be on the water. This is the peak of the summer bite. You want to get out there. It only gets hotter from here. Eventually, those fish will get a little lethargic as we get to the end of summer, but not right now. Right now, they're eating. You can catch them any way you want to catch them. These are my favorites, and these are my favorite baits and favorite colors for all of those different patterns. I'll link all of it in the video description. You don't need all of it. If there's a pattern, if there's something you want to try, you now know our favorite bait for that pattern, and we'll give you our favorite colors, favorite sizes, the hooks, all that stuff in the video description so you can fish with confidence on whichever pattern it happens to be. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.